You don't want to become a millionaire. You just want to spend $1 million. And that's the trap so many of us get in. We're thinking about what's all the stuff I can buy. That is not a rich mindset.
I'm Patrice Washington, and this is the Redefining Wealth podcast, where authenticity leads to alignment and abundance. Join us each week as we peel back the layers on what wealth truly means and dive into conversations that inspire, connect, and empower you to live your richest life. Get ready to challenge the status quo. It's time to redefine wealth for yourself. You're listening to the Redefining Wealth podcast with Patrice Washington. Welcome back. I am so excited about today's episode. So, maybe you don't know. So if you're brand new, welcome for the first time. Here's what you need to know. You stepped into a space where we don't just believe that wealth is about money and material possessions. We identify with the original 12th century definition of wealth, which says it's about the condition of well-being and happiness. And so there are other parts of your life that are impacting the way you show up in your finances, whether you are thinking about it or not. And believe it or not, that prevents you from doing so much in your life, but in particular, it prevents you from being aligned to the things that you say you want. So if you're interested in knowing which part of your life might be impacting your finances without you thinking about it, I would love for you to go to patricewashington.com/quiz. You can take a quick Redefining Wealth 2-minute quiz that'll really suggest which pillar you want to start working on. Now, for today's conversation, we are talking about the money pillar, and I love these guys. I love Dr. Klontz in particular because he's a personal mentor and has been such a guide to me as I have navigated the world of financial psychology. But this conversation is so fun and you're going to enjoy yourself. If you were looking for someone to step on your toes just a little bit, but still show you some love and tell you what to do next in terms of your own personal finance journey, then you are in the right place. You need to lock in and get ready. So here's the affirmation of the week, and then I'll introduce our guests. This week's affirmation is, I am ready to think rich. I am ready, willing, and able to be radically honest with myself about the behaviors and habits that are blocking my financial success. I recognize that true wealth begins with self-awareness, and I commit to identifying and releasing any actions rooted in scarcity or fear. By confronting my financial habits with honesty, I empower myself to make better choices that align with my vision of abundance. I trust that as I let go of limiting behaviors, I create the space for greater prosperity to flow into my life. Each day, I make a choice to choose behaviors that reflect the mindset of someone who is ready to thrive financially. Declare with me today, I am ready to think rich. Dr. Bradley T. Klontz is the founder of the Financial Psychology Institute and an associate professor of practice in financial psychology at Creighton University Hinder College of Business. He is a managing principal of Your Mental Wealth Advisors, a fellow of the American Psychological Association, and a former president of the Hawaii Psychological Association. And his co-author here with him today, Adrian Brambila, is an internet entrepreneur, content creator, and former professional dancer. He's done a lot. Adrian rose to TikTok stardom by redefining real wealth. And get this, by showcasing his journey of earning $1.7 million while living in a van. Without further ado, here is my friend, Dr. Bradley T. Klontz and Adrian Brambila. Welcome to the Redefining Wealth podcast again, Dr. Brad, and first time, Adrian.
Thank you so much for having us.
So happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So Dr. Brad has been on the show multiple times. And if you have heard my story about why I even decided to ever get a certificate in financial psychology and then crazy enough to pursue an MBA as well, it's because of this guy. Dr. Brad was one of my early guests on the Redefining Wealth podcast. And did you know I'm going into 7 years and you were one of my first guests?
I had no idea I was one of your first. You were such a pro back then. I wasn't sure how long you were doing it.
Yeah, you were one of my first guests, but such a blessing because in hearing you and in speaking to you and speaking to you after the episode is where I even really recognized that what had been coming to me intuitively was truly already the discipline of financial psychology. And so I always give you that credit. I'm always going to big you up, hug you, love you. Like, thank you for everything because my life changed when I met you.
Amazing. So thanks for sharing that. I'm super happy to be here. You were a shining star too, as you know, from all the awards on your wall.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much. And Adrian, we are going to be new friends, but please tell me about this claim to fame I was hearing about right before we started recording. How do people know you in the marketplace?
I got really popular on TikTok when I was living in a van during the pandemic, and I've been documenting making money online since my first dollar back in 2012. And so I started, now the numbers are a lot bigger, and I would share on TikTok. I live in a van and I'm a multimillionaire and I made like $100,000 last month. And I document living in the van, what's it like, living with minimalism, and then also living with wealth and minimalism. And I think that was the happy accident, because when people think about wealth and what rich looks like, I'm the opposite. In fact, to most people, I looked very poor. But I started sharing, this is how I got really connected with Brad, is trying to change the culture around what we think wealth is, because wealth is not about objects. I think objects own us. We don't own them. And I think that the more stuff we own, it's all this status game, and it's always a big waste of money for me. Living with freedom of time and choice. And that to me is what real wealth is. And I chose to live in a van. It was a beautiful lifestyle. Everything I owned was in that van. I got to see the whole country. I feel like the US is actually a bunch of countries all in one. So different cultures, different states. And it was just beautiful. But if it's valuable to your audience, I can share how I make money. I promise it's all legit. I don't do feet pics or anything. My first business, just to give a little bit of context, I used to dance professionally for T-Pain as a hip hop dancer. And so my very first business was teaching people how to dance the robot. And so my first money I ever made was like from a YouTube channel that I used to have. And then I grew that to like the number one place people learn how to dance the robot. And that was my first online business.
I'm not frozen. I'm in shock, though. I was not expecting that. The whole dancer, T-Pain, there's so many layers here. You're fascinating. We will have to get you also on the show to hear more about this, because that's wild. But I want to know how you two unlikely fellows, because I'm trying to understand hip hop, dancer, teaching robot on YouTube, and my beloved Dr. Brad, whose program I went through at Creighton University to get my MBA in financial psychology and behavioral finance. How did you two meet?
Go ahead, Adrian. I'd love to hear you tell the story.
I'm going to tell it my way. I was popping up on Brad's TikTok algorithm first. Just want to make that clear for the record. And even though on paper, as you've clearly demonstrated, we're the most unlikely partnership, especially when it comes to writing a book together, which is called Start Thinking Rich, comes out in a couple months. Or at the time of this podcast, hopefully maybe already out. On paper, totally opposite. Brad is all educated. This is his 9th book. This is my first book. I would say Brad's actually one of my closest friends now, and I have to thank TikTok. And I think the commonality that we have, even though despite different backgrounds, is we believe that anyone can attain wealth. We love helping people. I'm not a professor, but I do teach online. I've taught over 30,000 people on how to monetize online. And I also would like to think we're a little bit edgy or witty.
Yeah.
I think our ability to be a little more brash and not deal with some BS to save face, I think we're on the more aggressive side of things. And I think the demonstration is, Brad and I created this book together. We got some really intense chapter titles that come across like that.
Oh, I'm waiting to get to it. I'm just letting you get through because, man, When I got the digital copy, I'm still at this moment waiting for my physical copy. And you guys know I'm old school. I love to dog ear, highlight, underline. And the minute I opened the digital copy on my phone, now, not just because I'm a woman of a certain age, I had to like zoom in. I said, well, wait a minute. What is, and I knew the title had the subtitles 21 Harsh Truths to Take You From Broke to Rich, but I was not expecting some of these titles. And Dr. Brad.
I know.
No, I know Dr. Brad can really come with it. He is, yeah, he can also be real deal and raw, which I love. But what made you partner on the book in the first place, Dr. Brad?
Yeah, so Adrian talked about how we met each other, and we literally, so it's the pandemic, you're stuck at home. We're both pumping out videos. I think between the two of us, we've done about 10,000 videos. We had overlap in our message. And so I really resonated with Adrian's family story and all the adversity his family faced, and hopefully he'll share some of that moving forward. And essentially the mindset that his parents and his grandparents gave him around what it takes to become wealthy. And I just really resonated with it. So he was doing a lot of mindset content, which is what I was on there trying to do. And so I resonated with him. I connected with him. And then we literally started to make videos making fun of each other. That's how our relationship started, which was a lot of fun. And then eventually he was actually on his way to pick up his van across the country, and he stopped by the house, and, our families met, and we just had an instant connection there. But really this book came about because we'd actually created some educational products for people, and we started to create stuff together. But we really wanted, and we were thinking about our TikTok audience, our social media audience, and we wanted to write a book, literally for me. So there's things that I say when I'm teaching in class, when I have my professor hat on. And then there's things that I say to people when I shut the door and it's just the two of us behind the door, and I just give it to them straight. And there's a time and place for that. And so essentially the challenge for me around this book, or the scary part around this book, was like, I'm going to put it all on paper, what I would say to you if the door was shut and no one else was listening. And I wanted to have an honest conversation with you about what you can do to change your life. That was the mindset, at least, that we approached this book around, is like, what's the truth? What would we say if we weren't afraid of getting canceled? What would we say if we really wanted to help somebody in a profound way and they were open to hearing the information? That's part of it too. So that's what inspired this.
I love that. I love embracing the fact that we can't keep sugarcoating things with people if we genuinely want to see them change. And, in my community, many of the ladies that I work with in my programs, they call me the chief edge snatcher. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that term, edge snatching. So let me educate you real quick. No, edge snatching is basically when you are so real with someone, it kind of like blows their edges back. These are edges, guys. This little, you might call it a hairline. Women call it edges. And they kind of just like, wow, such truth that it's in your face, but you appreciate it. I know for me, people keep coming back because they appreciate what they call tough love, but somebody's got to do it. Someone's got to be it. So I love this for you guys. Adrian, I did get to read about your family in the book. I do understand we both grew up in California, I believe. You talked about your family and your parents and what they demonstrated and how hard they worked. Can you share some of that upbringing about, did some of these tough love concepts come from that place?
Yeah, actually, we have a lot of the chapter titles were based off conversations of both how Brad and I were raised, what we learned, what we saw about money. My dad in particular immigrated here when he was 13 from Mexico. My grandma is the reason the Brambila family is now here in America. My dad's dad was murdered at a really young age. So my grandma had to take care of him and 3 other brothers and sisters. And she was commuting to the US and back, trying to save enough money to bring the whole family here. She'd be gone for the longest stretch was like half a year, trying to work odd jobs and stuff. And finally, she saved enough and hustled. And all this to say, I was born here. And I feel like being with how I was raised with this immigrant mindset, we left the bad place. We came to the good place, right? That's why if we could have done everything and lived the best life, we would have, the family would have stayed in Mexico. And so I have, especially in today in culture, people that are born here, they're more aware of all the bad, because this country's not perfect too. But to the immigrant is like, no, this is the land of opportunity. And I do acknowledge that this is not a perfect place, but I know I still, even though I did not immigrate myself, I've tried to learn through all the struggles of my parents' experiences of like, and when I say struggled, I was broke. You know, I had worked minimum wage, I side hustle. Like when I talk about my parents' struggle, no, I'm like, they went hungry.
Yeah.
My dad had to steal food because he was so hungry. Like when I say the word struggle, it's like relative. And that's when I consider, so like to me, it's like, I'll never have a struggle like they did. And I need to keep that in the back of my mind of like, I have almost an immense pressure to do well. I was not meant to be broke, because that would almost be disrespectful to my father, to my mom, and to my grandma, especially because of all the stuff that she went through, every adversity. I have that immigrant mindset. My dad, he's said this to me before. It's not an original quote, but it's a very harsh thought. If you are born poor, it's not your fault. But if you die poor, it is your fault. And that actually ended up being a chapter title in the book. And again, when you first hear that, it sounds tough. And then the chapters itself are the loving part. We try to break down, and every single chapter, I'm going to not talk out of my lane because we got Dr. Brad Klontz here, but talking about locus of control, maybe you could share that. But they all kind of center around where your locus of control is. Is it on external factors? And there's reasons we could blame the system. It's always being rigged. Or the immigrant mindset is like, no, we came here and it's our responsibility to work. And we believe this is a better place than where we came from to work and change our circumstance.
Yeah, I can identify with that because I'm first generation American. My family is Belizean, and I do totally understand that idea. I'm like, what we complain about, quite frankly, and what I grew up hearing as a complaint going back home to Belize when I was young and going back and forth, my friends, my cousins, family members that still live there, our worst day, just does not compare, right? It just didn't compare and it didn't make sense. So, Dr. Brad, what about your upbringing? How has that impacted this work?
Yeah, it's so funny because my wife, I get some hate on social media. It's so weird. There's some trolls out there. And my wife actually said to me, she goes, Brad, you got to think about it. We're always the last person to see the privileges we have in life. She's like, everyone's looking at you. You're a doctor. You're a white guy. Everyone's assuming that you were born rich. And I was like, it never crossed my mind. I'm like, well, I guess you're right. And so for me, I guess immigrant is a metaphor here because it's not nearly the same thing. But my parents divorced when I was 2. My mom was a part-time teacher. I grew up not having money. I grew up hearing, we can't do that. I'm sorry. I grew up with, TV's broke. Sorry, we don't have a TV. I did go to bed hungry a time or two in my life when I got out of the house and I'm 18 and I was too sort of prideful to ask my parents for money for food. And so I went hungry at times, I grew up knowing that being poor sucks. Okay. And so that's chapter 1 in our book. Being poor sucks. I knew that. And I didn't want to be poor anymore. And I remember going to one of my friend's house and having dinner with his family. So I'm in middle school. And I couldn't believe what I saw around the house. I was like, oh my God, they're so rich. And in retrospect, they were middle class, but they had like 2 bathrooms in their house. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's like the pinnacle of wealth. If you have 2 bathrooms, having one is difficult when there's 4 people and you got the flu going around the house. And I just remember as a kid, just being like sort of obsessed with, during dinner, I interviewed this guy's dad as if I'm a reporter for the New York Times, as if I'm a psychologist, an anthropologist trying to study. Oh, so what did you do for a living? How did you get that job? How would somebody get that job? And so I think I was really curious at a young age, how do people go from poor to rich? You guys both talked about being first generation America. I got branches of my family who've been here since the Mayflower. Okay. And it's like, I'm sitting here looking at both sets of grandparents live in trailer parks. Now, by the way, it was great. The trailer park was safe. They came out of like really rough neighborhoods in inner city Detroit and everything. And so it's like the trailer park was a haven. I never saw it as like this bad thing. I was like, oh my God, it's so great. We're not hearing bullets fly around the house when we're at grandma and grandpa's house. But I was struck with this, like, why, why do we not own any land? You don't even own the land in a trailer park, by the way. You own the trailer. You don't actually own any property. all these generations, like we're hardworking, we're God-fearing, good people. Why are we not ahead? And so I just sort of became obsessed with trying to study. And this is where the professor thing comes in. It's like, how can I started to become obsessed with studying the psychology of wealth. And I'll tell you this. So I own an asset management company. I work with ultra wealthy people. This book is not written for them. This book is written for me when I was 14, 15, 20, when I was 30. I didn't know any of this stuff. So that's sort of my passion with this project. There's no money in books, really. This is a passion project to try to transform as many lives as possible. And essentially the manual I wish that somebody had given me when I was young. So we have mindset stuff. We have very practical stuff. But that's really the passion that's driving this book for me.
Yeah. And I love that you guys get straight to it with the harsh truths, because even though it can be jarring when you first read each chapter title, you do go into the why and break it down so well. So let's start with your beliefs about money are keeping you poor. What are some of those beliefs that are keeping us back?
So I'll take this one, Adrian. I've done a lot of research on beliefs around money. So each one of these chapters too, the biggest part of the intervention is just sort of going, whoa, what if that was true? These are meant to be sort of like, we're shaking you by the shoulders and say, wait, your beliefs about money are keeping you poor. Wake up. This is so important. And if you can at least acknowledge that there's an element of truth in that, I feel like you're halfway there. You're more than halfway there. Because the bottom line is that this better than most people, probably one of the people who know this better than anyone in the country, Patrice. But there are specific beliefs you get around money that you inherit from your parents, your grandparents. Adrian got a lot of great beliefs. I got some good beliefs. I got some really bad beliefs around money that come through the generations, and they're passed down to you, and they're unconscious. You're not even aware of these things, but you think this is how money works, and it sets you up for failure or success. So if you can trace and track what those are, Adrian talked briefly about, the status, the money status belief. A big part of what we're trying to do in this book and what we try to do on social media is break some of these myths around what rich people do, how they think and what they actually do, because social media is lying to everybody. It's like most millionaires are self-made, first of all, which is incredible news. Don't fight it. Embrace it. This is great news. And most of them tend to be frugal. That's how they describe themselves, So when you're on social media and you see people flexing all these luxury brands, and I live in Boulder, by the way, which everyone is super rich here. Like I went from feeling wealthy to feeling poor again when I moved to Boulder. Nobody's wearing labels. Nobody's wearing things that you can actually see the brand on there. That is more of a middle class, poor mindset. And I hate to say it, but it's true. And if you believe that that's how wealthy people live their lives, you are going to be broke forever. Like our chapter 3 sort of sums it up. You don't want to become a millionaire. You just want to spend $1 million. And that's the trap so many of us get in. We're thinking about what's all the stuff I can buy. That is not a rich mindset. A rich mindset is thinking, I'm going to invest that. How much money can I make from that investment? That's the mindset. Not how much can I spend? How much can I use that to make?
Yeah. I love that chapter 12 is only broken insecure people flex luxury brands. I said, oh, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt. So Adrian, let's unpack that one. So you're living in a van. You're highlighting the fact that you're making all of this money while choosing to live in a van. I'm assuming not flexing all the luxury brands while living in the van. What types of responses were you getting from people? Were they questioning whether you were even telling the truth?
Oh my gosh. My troll percentage of comments, I was getting like thousands of comments a day. I mean, it probably bumped up to like 30%. This guy's a fraudster. It's fake. It's a hoax. It's scammer. Because it was just a radical visual of like, I would talk about like, hey, like I would make coffee in the morning in the van. There's some not glorious things of van life. It's not that bad. But basically in my van, you have a glorified number one. When you go number one, it goes into a bucket and you have to empty the bucket. That's my content. I'm like, I live in a van. I have to do this. I'm doing it by choice. And especially in those videos, it's like, there's no way, because they're imagining if they're a millionaire, I wouldn't be emptying a bucket of pee, right? And then I would showcase the beautiful life of like waking up, opening up the van doors, and there was the ocean, there was the mountains, there was the valley. it's just a contradiction of what wealth is. So I'm really glad I did that because now I actually do have nice things. Now I have a super nice modern home. I have a cyber truck. And I think the message we want to make clear is when you accumulate wealth, you can have nice things, but you have to do it the right way. How we encourage it is if you are trading time for dollars, so right now, 9-to-5 job, typically that's trade time for dollars, and you want something nice. The wealthy person's going to buy that nice car, let's say a Porsche, way different than your average person. The average person is like, okay, the Porsche costs $100,000 and they factor in the calculator, how much time do I have to work in order to equate that? And it's basically amount of hours, days, months, right? Or years. And a wealthy person, they don't think like that. They think, okay, how much money does my investments need to make where I can buy the Porsche? So it's never a trade of time for dollars. So I don't live in a van anymore. I'm not a minimalist by definition, but I still am an intentionalist. And I have nice things now. And my whole lifestyle, everything I own is all paid for by my investments. So I still, even though I have some nice stuff, I'm living way underneath my means. And that's a huge superpower on your path to trying to accumulate wealth. And it's so underrated. It's not sexy at all. It's just living underneath your means. The only difference is like when I was doing the van, I saved and invested that year. The most I ever had, 95% of every dollar that I made. I had super high income. My cost of living was super low. Now I live in a house and I still have the majority of my investments and saving. It's still like, I think around like 60% of every dollar I make is still being invested. So when it came to buying a house, I didn't buy the most I could. I didn't buy the biggest thing I could, even though it looks without the perception. Because this is the thing, rich is very loud. It's what you see, and wealth is quiet. You don't know. So on the surface, someone might take a look and they say, well, look, Adrian has nice things. I wonder if he's just like trading his time for dollars. But behind the scenes, that wealth, which you never know how someone's spending, it's that investments that's paying for my lifestyle. And if my investment income keeps accelerating, like I've learned from my parents were so frugal and saving. I didn't see them ever spend on nice things. I don't know why, but I feel like, well, I know they didn't. I have to like enjoy my life too. I hired my parents. I pay them full time. They work part time. I always fly in first class. I do all these things. I love gifting back in the way. I love spending that. I never look at the bill when it comes to like gifting and those experiences, especially around people I love, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. The Institute for Redefining Wealth offers a 12-month journey to help you redefine wealth using our unique yet proven framework for financial wellness. We'll be your accountability partner, providing clear success paths, resources, and motivation to keep you on track as you work toward your professional and financial goals. Join me along with purpose chasers from all around the world as we level up pillar by pillar to achieve the lives we say we desire. It all begins with a 30-day authentic alignment audit to identify areas of your life that just may be out of sync with your goals. You'll gain access to in-depth training modules, categorized podcast selections, monthly pillar themes, and challenges with cash and prize giveaways, as well as a resource library tailored to your chosen membership level. For more details, visit redefiningwealth.institute. That's redefiningwealth.institute. I can't wait to see you there. How am I supposed to embrace that when for so long my idea of being rich or being wealthy, the point of me going to college, the point of me having the job is so that I could have the things and then show everybody? When you already have accumulated the things, how does someone in their 40s, 50s who wants to embrace this actually get first the mindset, but then the conviction to follow through with it?
I only knew this answer because of what I saw. I have privilege of watching my parents do this. To the immigrant Mexican mindset, there were years where my parents didn't buy new clothes. There were years that we didn't go out to eat. I'm just going to use those two examples. I could share others, but that alone. And today, if you give that as tactical, practical advice, people's response like, hell no. You're saying I can't go out to eat anymore for years? But I saw this being done, so that is what I did. I remember I did go out during college. $1 rum and coke a night every Wednesday. That was the only time I'd go out because it was $1 for a drink. We talk in the book, giving up alcohol. That is something I did give up in my 20s. Like, if you're broke, you shouldn't be drinking. That's a harsh take maybe, but that's how I feel.
That's what the book is about, Adrian. It's fine.
Yeah. I live that. So this is where we get in a conversation where people are like, well, I shouldn't have to. This is what's wrong with this country. If that's the sacrifice I have to do, that's wrong. And I think that is checking your privilege, this expectation that you shouldn't have to sacrifice when every single successful and wealthy person I know or that I've read about has sacrifice. Sacrifice is something they have to do. And because I lived in a van, I can also say you can have a fantastic life and not spend any money. Parks, nature, swimming, amazing activities don't cost a thing.
Yeah, I started to adopt this idea too with girlfriends that instead of always going to brunch or going out to eat, that we go for a hike, we go for a walk, we just get out, we move our bodies because the fit pillar is so important to us here at Redefining Wealth. And that has been good for all of us. Everyone who takes me up on this, like, it is so good. We save money, but we're also taking care of our physical and mental well-being and having an opportunity to connect without all of the clutter between us, talking over people in a loud restaurant or drinking unnecessarily and all these things. And I agree with that. Dr. Brad, there's a chapter that says you don't deserve more. You're getting paid what you're worth. So offensive and harsh, like in a space where I've even said to people, you know, go get what you desire and deserve. And you're like, you don't deserve more. What is this chapter about?
Well, first of all, let me just say for the record that all offensive chapter titles, we can blame on Adrian. That would really help me out in life. I'm teasing.
It's all you, bro.
So this is, again, we're looking at shifts here in mindsets. One of the things that will keep you stuck forever is if you're working in a job and you're sitting around complaining about how everyone should be paying you more because you see your worth, right? And maybe you had loving parents who told you, sweetie, you're the best thing that's ever happened to the world. And the world is your oyster. If you're lucky enough to have supportive parents, maybe you have this belief. And really what we're trying to say with this, so first of all, this isn't about your human worth. Of course, you're priceless. Of course. This is about economics. And so the market, whatever money you're making right now, that's what the market has determined your worth. Okay. And that's a bitter pill to swallow. But if you don't swallow that pill, you're never going to make any more money because really it's a call to action. In economic terms, how do you become worth more? I think this is a really good question you should be asking yourself. And there's multiple paths to becoming worth more. Developing another skill. So let's say that you're, I'll just use myself as an example. Let's say that, I'm a psychologist. I'm not making as much money as I want. So, I'm going to get into finance. Now I have psychology and finance. Ooh, okay. Now I've just built a skill set that not a lot of people have. Adrian, very successful dancer, really knows what he's doing. He combined that with, how do I market this on the internet? How do I make passive income related to this? He built up another skill set. Therefore, he became worth more, and the market starts to show you that. So if you don't like what you're getting paid, first of all, just sit with it. We love you. I'm going to hug you as I'm saying this to you. Unfortunately, you're just getting paid what you're worth. And so let's work on becoming worth more because you can do it.
Ooh, yeah, these harsh truths. I do identify with that. I mean, even when I lost everything in the recession, 2008, 2009, when I was thinking about, well, what can I do? I had been an entrepreneur my entire adult life. And so no one was trying to hire me. I didn't have like corporate America skill set and all this stuff. I'm like, well, what am I naturally good at? What do I have a skill set in? What are my gifts? How can I bridge those together? And that was really it. It was giving myself permission to leverage that. And I think a big mindset shift has to be as well. And maybe a harsh truth, maybe it's connected to your teachers can't teach you how to get rich. But a lot of us were just taught to go to school and sit there in the classroom and, pass the test, but we weren't given permission to explore and expand how we can take these gifts and this skill set and literally go leverage it in the marketplace without someone else telling us we can. And that was the big aha too and shift that I think many of us need to get, is that you don't have to wait for someone to come and tell you that you can. You get to say, I'm gonna at least put it out there and try.
I resonate with this so much, especially entrepreneurs understand right away what you're talking about. People that aren't entrepreneurs, they feel like they're in the structure of like what has been ingrained with us since we were children, go to school, work a job, and then, retire, get a house. If that was the path that worked, by the way, then the average American wouldn't have so much credit card debt, lack of savings, and lack of 401k invested, and banking on Social Security to be the thing that saves them, if that's going to even be around, right? So there has to be like a level of awakening that the standard of what we've been taught and raised, it actually is not working, or else there'd be no need for financial podcasts. There wouldn't be any need because we'd all be, rolling in it. It's not the case. So luckily there's a lot of different ways to find success, but you'll start to see a lot of commonalities. Like we talked about sacrifice, ways of adding more value. This is where I feel like as soon as I mention this, it's going to be like, it was right in front of your face the entire time. I feel like I don't know much other than how to ask a really good question into Google. And I feel like a lot of the things I've learned online is because I was able to ask the right question to Google. Because of my ability to ask a question into Google, I have generated millions online. Here's the thing. You know what Google is. I know what Google is. It's like if a grand piano is sitting in a room, it's going to sound terrible when I'm sitting on it, but to the master pianist, when they play, it's like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. And so we all have access to these tools. AI is another one that's really common. I know AI employees are a thing that's happening right now, and you can sound all scared about that, but we can actually leverage AI to actually help us make money, which is incredible. But just because we have access to the tool, you still have to know how to use it. And it starts with asking the question of how. So Black Friday, Cyber Monday I'm right now working on where I usually make the most money. Anyone that sells online, I know we've all shopped on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and this is a mindset shift. What if you Googled, instead of what deals to buy, you Googled, how do I sell on Black Friday, Cyber Monday? How do I make money instead of spend money on Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Right? So it's like we all have access to the same tools. YouTube's where I learn most of my stuff now, but it comes down to kind of an awareness and then your ability to ask questions and then learn.
Oh, so good. In my community, we always talk about asking better questions. Like if we ask better questions, we get better answers. And that was such a great distinction. Instead of what deal can I find? It's what can I sell? What can I offer with this skill set, with this gift that I have? What do people out there need? And how can I become the solution? So good. Okay. I have to get to one more of these for sure. I'm going to preface this by saying, Steve Harvey taught me when I was on the Steve Harvey show for those 4 years. He used to say all the time, and even when I met him back in college, he used to say, the worst thing that you could do for a broke person is become one of them. And when I was 19 and he first said that, I was like, oh, goodness. He was starting me with hard truths over 20 years ago. I was like, what? And then I saw you guys say, chapter 10, get rid of your poor friends if you want to get rich. Another like, oh, and this is a big one because we are wired to be in our herds. We are wired for the tribe. Like we want to be with our people. How do we get rid of our poor friends? I would be such a bad person to do that, Dr. Brad. Why would I do such a thing just to get rich?
Well, it is a bitter truth, and there's a lot of science behind it. But we want to preface it by saying this. So in the book, in the first page or two, we make a distinction between poor and broke. Okay. And this is an important distinction. I've been broke. You've been broke. Adrian's been broke. My family's been broke for generations. Unfortunately, we've also been poor for generations. And poor is a mindset, and this is what we want to really try to eradicate in our own brains. And this book is an entire intervention on your poor mindset. And also, we want to avoid other people that have the poor mindset. At least we want to avoid sharing the deepest, most important aspirations we have, because they're going to sabotage us. And it's not because they're evil. It's not because they're bad. It's because they love us. They love us. You mentioned the tribe. They love you and they don't want to lose you. They're terrified of losing you. And so it's not that you're successful and they're jealous and they want to tear you down because they're malicious. They don't want you to leave the tribe and be gone forever. And so what we're really trying to say here is if you want to become wealthy, you're going to need to avoid people who have a poor mindset. Now, this poor mindset, these people can be high income. I know people making six figures that have a terrible poor mindset. And what they do is every dollar comes in, they're spending it, and they have that lifestyle creep. And whatever they get, it's gone. Avoid those people. They're not broke, but at the end of the month they are, right? They have high income. And you can have broke people, and I certainly had this when I started my journey, who are reading books on personal finance, who are listening to podcasts like this. They want to make their life better. That is so inspiring to me. To me, that's like, yeah, fine, you're broke. I'm not worried about that at all. You have a rich mindset. You're going to become a multimillionaire. And by the way, you can spot people. I can spot people who are 16 who I'm like, oh, that kid's going to be a multimillionaire. Just plain and simple. They got the rich mindset. They will not be stopped because it really doesn't take a whole lot more than the mindset to ask the right questions. As Adrian so eloquently discussed, you need to have that shift. So you got to be careful who you're hanging around. And we're not saying get rid of all your broke friends, abandon your neighborhood, abandon your family, but maybe you need to not talk to them so much about what's going on. I'll tell you that when I started along my path of making more money, and for me, I went educational route first before I became an entrepreneur, I would go back home with the people I love most, and they'd be like, when are you going to get a job? When are you going to get out of school and get a job? I found myself like diminishing myself. It's like, oh, I bet you're making big money now. I'd be like, wait. You know how much debt I got? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm broke. And it was easy for me to say that because I wasn't living there. I was just going back and visiting. But if I was around that, I would be tempted to be broke. I remember a short little story here. I remember in middle school, I'm sixth grade. I'm in a working class town. I remember standing around my friends. They're like, oh, what'd you get on the test? And then I said, oh, I don't know. I got a 98%. And these three guys, oh man, what a nerd. What a blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, I got a C. I literally from then for the rest of my high school career, sabotaged my test. I would literally put the wrong answers on the test so I could get a C, so I could belong with this group of people. And in retrospect, it's like, whoa, what a terrible approach to life. And by the way, I've put a lot of time and effort into getting my kids into schools where it's cool to get a 98%. That's been my entire approach to parenting, is to try to, have enough wealth and enough mobility for myself to put myself in a group where it's cool to get A's. So you want to be around in a group of people where it's cool to have a forward-facing vision, where it's cool to be frugal. Like get around a group of people who brag at how much money they saved, who brag at what percentage of their income they're investing. That's the group of people you want to hang around.
Oh, I love it. We want to be around people who brag differently, who talk about what their portfolios are creating and what their investments are doing for them, not about, oh, I got this watch, I got this purse, I got these shoes, I got this, like all the ways that they're just spending the $1 million, not allowing it to accumulate on their behalf. Hey, podcast family, big news. I've just launched a game-changing app designed exclusively for you. It is officially the Redefining Wealth app with Patrice Washington. Now, all of my courses, coaching, live streams, and most importantly, my community are just a tap away, all under one roof. You can download the app now for seamless access to exclusive content and a vibrant community of purpose chasers from all over the world. This is the ultimate hub for all things Patrice Washington and all things Redefining Wealth. You can search for it in your app store or find the link at redefiningwealth.app. That's redefiningwealth.app. Do not miss out. Your journey to redefining wealth just got a whole lot easier. Download the app today and let's take this adventure of redefining wealth for ourselves to the next level together. I love the harsh truths. I love the direct conversation because I do believe that without that gut punch, most of us don't change. I think, Adrian, you mentioned the term awakening at some point, and our framework for redefining wealth has evolved over these 7 years. And what I learned through working with people is that folks don't come into the awareness that they really have something to redefine. They may be frustrated, but not quite do anything differently until they have an awakening. And the awakening is what I usually say is, arising from slumber, getting off autopilot. But usually that's called by, or in our experience, I say caused by a boulder effect. So something happens and then you just can't take anymore. And you're like, I have to wake up and do something different. For both of you, do you have a boulder effect? Even though you may have grown up, Adrian, watching your parents and grandparents, is there a boulder effect? Was there something in your story that was like, I got to do something differently immediately?
There was an experience that profoundly changed my life, and it was when I was dancing for T-Pain. Because prior to that, my goal, I have this written down in like one of my first journals I ever wrote, was like, I want to make 6 figures a year. I want to work at a marketing agency, and I want to be the marketing director. I have this written down. That's why I went to college, studied marketing. That was my whole thing. And then when I went and I started learning how to dance from YouTube, I went to school in a very private college in Iowa, not the best place to be a pro dancer. And YouTube is where I learned. That's where I stopped drinking and I started watching dance videos, and I auditioned and I happened to make it. It was God's miracle. When we first got to be around T-Pain, and not in the sense of the audition, like you saw him once and you were like, oh my God, this is really happening. But then we were around him all the time. And he invited us over to his house. And there was one day in particular where he was about to launch a song. The song was terrible. It's called Reverse Cowgirl. Do not listen to it. Terrible song. He was like, hey, we're about to drop this. Do you guys want to see the video and hear it before we drop it? We're like, heck yeah. So he plays it for us, plays the video. Again, terrible song. Then he looks over at the manager. It's like 10 a.m. And he's like, you guys ready? All right, cool. All right. And they launch it. Then he gets drunk, massively drunk. He had his own Nubo alcohol. And I remember checking my phone on iTunes back in the day. It was 99 cents a download. I saw it go from like 100,000, like a second, then like 1 million, then like 5 million. And I was like, oh my God, I just watched him make like $5 million in like a minute. And while that happened, he got drunk, and it's like 11 a.m. now, and he is just raging, right? And I think that moment changed my life. It's like, wait a second, like that was my aspiration, my goal. I was going to follow this path. And I'm looking at T-Pain. T-Pain's not much older than I am. He's like 5 years older than I was. So I was like 20. He was like 25, and he was already, rolling it and making money. His earning skill set was up there. It just really changed. Like that was like my moment to wake. Like I think what I've been taught, I just know there's other ways. And then we constantly met other artists and people that came in. And so I just got really so fortunate to see a spectacle of wealth and status and people that perceive to have it all. And it just helped me question my original goal of like, what is my aspiration, to be a marketing director, or can I actually dream bigger? And the path, what is the path? So then when tour ended, I went back to Iowa and actually could not get a marketing job. And I went to YouTube, and that's when I first started posting. And I'll share, like, I failed a lot. I didn't make money for the first 2 years, but my awakening was like that sacrifice. Like I'm blindly committed to getting my own little moment where I can make money online. And I don't drink especially in the morning, right? Like T-Pain, but I have had really huge launches where I've made more money in a day than it's taken me years to make. And I feel like it goes back to watching it and seeing it and then realizing there is another way. And there's other realm of what people call success. And just very fortunate to experience that.
There is another way. I love it. Dr. Brad, did you have one of those boulder effects?
Yes, I did. And mine was extremely painful, self-inflicted pain. I got out of grad school. I owed $100,000 of student loan debt. I thought, well, what's the first thing I'm going to do? Well, and my buddy who had a poor mindset, high income, poor mindset goes, dude, you got to get a watch. There's a whole club that you can now belong to here, luxury watch. So I have a net worth of negative $100,000. The first thing I do after I get my first job as a psychologist is I go out and I buy, Omega Speedmaster. I still have it just to remind myself of like, what an idiot I was. And it was ignorance. I didn't know. I thought this is what rich people do. This is what I see, right? And then the second thing I did, probably the first thing, just to show you what a great person I am, I went and bought my mom a handmade, designed Hawaii heirloom gold, big, thick bracelet, and hundreds and hundreds. I forgot what it cost me, probably close to $1,000 or a couple $1,000. because I wanted to show my mom, who was a single mom for many years, oh God, it makes me want to cry too, how much I appreciated what she did for me and all the sacrifice, right? I'm going to show my mom. And part of it was like, also, I want my mom to go around and say, yeah, my son's a doctor, woo-hoo, look what we did. Look what I did from all my sacrifice. Those are the two things I did. And then I also wanted to pay off that $100,000. And so I saw a buddy of mine, another poor mindset, make $100,000 a year day trading. And I'm like, oh, this is how I can pay off my debt. Woo, this is what rich people do. I sold everything I had of value. My wife can attest to this because she met me shortly after this time. I had a mattress on the floor. I sold my truck that was worth probably like $8,000. I bought a $500 car. I had one fork. And lawn chairs for furniture. It's ridiculous what I did because this is the path to riches. Had a great couple months. The tech bubble burst. I lost all my money. And it was sort of like that moment I hit bottom. Here I went and did the right things. I went to college, got a doctorate. I have a negative $100,000 net worth. It's 8.5% interest rate on the student loans. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? What the hell am I going to do? That woke me up to this. Okay, what is my thinking around money, man? Where did I get this? I'm going to have to start thinking different. I'm doing it all wrong. And that's what led me to research the psychology of wealth, the psychology of money. But really, I went home, I started interviewing my family members. Mom, what was it like for you growing up? What was it like for grandma and grandpa? I was trying to dig, what's the psychology that my family has had for hundreds of years that has kept us poor? And that's really what led me along this journey.
Goodness. Well, if we started to ask better questions again, what keeps us here? What has kept me here? Why am I making these choices? Who said? Where did I learn this? Where did I get this idea? Those questions alone, along with these 21, is it harsh truths or 22?
21.
21 harsh truths, I believe, will take us all from broke or having a poor mindset to having a wealthy mindset. I appreciate you guys so much for coming on. What's your biggest hope for this book? I know, Dr. Brad, this is your 9th, but Adrian, this is your 1st. What's your biggest hope for this project?
Why we created the book was to help people. So my hope is after the book is launched and for the rest of my life, that I will wake up to messages of people who've read it and say, because of your book, I've either made more money or I've saved more. I opened up a Roth IRA. I now have a 401k savings. And then a book is forever. Like, I hope when I am 30 years from now, I got people that like I'll meet in real life and say, dude, I'm retired here with you sitting on this island because of you. Like, I read your book. So I really hope that is what happens.
I love it. Thank you. What about you, Dr. Brad?
I would say it's the same thing. It's like, I just want to impact as many people as possible, reach as many people as possible. The best DMs I ever get on social media, by the way, I get a ton of just horrific DMs telling me about myself. It's amazing. Send me more. I love it. The best ones I get are like, this one will stand out for me forever. It's like, hey, Dr. Brad, just want to let you know, I started watching you in high school. I got out of college. So this is like 5 years later. He goes, I got my first job and I'm maxing out my 401k. And he says, and if I hadn't seen you in high school, I probably wouldn't have done it. And when I saw that, I'm like, that one video that hit him at the right time. So this book hitting somebody at the right time literally created a multimillionaire, literally created. So it's just hitting people at the right time. And so essentially I'm super passionate about this. I've never written a book like this. These chapters are distinct. They're meant to have shifts, massive shifts, aha moments. We want people to gasp, boom. I'm looking at things entirely differently now. So this entire book is meant to be a therapeutic intervention for as many people as possible.
Well, I can't wait to get my physical copy because I'm going through it just along with everyone else who's listening. I want to go through it. I believe that no matter what we think we know, we should always be students. And there's so much to offer and so much to learn. And I know every time I interact with you, Dr. Brad, I know I'm stretched. And now my new hip hop dancer turned van minimalist, intentionalist, like Adrian, you were just fascinating to me. And I'm so grateful that I had an opportunity to meet you today. And I will say my hope and desire and wish and prayer is the same as you all, is that as I go throughout life. But really, I told my daughter this on a walk we took earlier this week. I said, my prayer really is that when I am long gone, you will meet people and say, my mom was Patrice Washington. They will say, oh my gosh, your mom changed my life because of this episode or this post or this book or this interaction. And I just want to sprinkle that all throughout the rest of my life. And I love being aligned with people who desire to do the same. So thank you guys. I'm sending you so much love on Start Thinking Rich. You guys, at the time this episode drops, this book is out and available for purchase. So get your hands on a copy. And if you really want to take it to the next level, I think that we should make this the book of the month for November in the Redefining Wealth app so we can talk about it together. I don't know, maybe Dr. Brad or Adrian will come on and have a little powwow with us, you guys, but
we'd love to.
I really am excited about this. If you guys want folks who are real, there's a lot of posers, pretenders, fakers, frauds, scammers, charlatans. You know how I feel about that are out there, but I know that they are real deal and that we have so much to learn. And there's so many ways that we can grow. And I really want our community. Yes, we understand we're redefining wealth and it's wellness and all those things. However, we still need the tangible, practical tools, you guys. And there's a lot of really great, rich information in the book. So let's get our copies and we will do a book club around Start Thinking Rich, 21 Harsh Truths to take you from broke to financial freedom. And we'll see about getting Dr. Brad or Adrian or both of them in. Let's do it, you guys. So with that, I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. I hope you took a lot away from today's episode. Until next week, I want you to go live your life's purpose, find fulfillment, and of course, earn more without ever feeling like you have to chase money. We'll talk to you later.